everyone. Can you hear me? I hope you can hear me and that the connection is good. I already see someone in the chat box. Hi, Alessandro. Sky. Could you guys give me confirmation that you can hear me and see me? Okay, good. I think there's some lag time, of course. Okay, so there appears to be some lag time on the YouTube part, but that's okay. So as long as you can hear me well, I can see that's okay. So I'm following the comment section, and I guess that, yeah, there's due to the lag that we'll lose some direct interaction. Maybe I'll get that right for the next time. So I'm carefully watching. You're already asking questions, of course, but you could have sent in questions, and those I compiled, and I will answer these in this session. And I think I should be talking to the camera more, that you can see me like this. So I'm Kevin. I'm seeing that someone asks my name. So my name's Kevin. I'm from Belgium. And I started this channel to help you guys to get around in the biomedical science field, making a study choice, and being informed in choosing your future. So let's dive into it, and I'll start with the first question. I'm aiming to complete this in like something of, let's say, 45 to 60 minutes. And we'll dive. Where do we send questions for next time? Well, there's a video on my channel that's called Ask Me Your Most Burning Questions, and you can pose them there, and I'll see those that came later. Maybe just send your questions by adding a prefix session 2. Then you can add some questions there. I will perhaps pick out some session questions from this one right now and answer them first, depending on where they fit in the team. So without further ado, I'm going to start with a first question, and might not be applicable for everyone that is currently watching. So I think 11 people are already here now, so that's quite cool. So thanks everyone for that. Let's dive into it, and I'll try to share my screen for that. Let's close this. Let's see. Am I on LinkedIn or Instagram? I am on LinkedIn. I am not on Instagram. We can check that out later perhaps. But first, let's dive into the questions. So I'll share my screen briefly now. And I hope you guys can see this. So I'm in Word now, and here I listed the questions that I selected for this session. So we'll start off with the first one. If I want to develop new drugs and medications or improve previous ones for diseases, should I study biomedical science or pharmaceutical science? So let's dive back to this screen. Okay, so the essence of biomedical science is to identify drug targets and the biology of underlying disease mechanisms. So you're diving into the pathogenesis. So it's very disease focused. But then again, pharmaceutical science is also disease focused because you're trying to develop drugs for that disease. So they're kind of like complementary. I've seen biomed programs like in the UK where you get pharmacology in year 1, and that's cool because you already get that feeling with what you're trying to do further away from biomed. So let's say that biomedical science is more in the beginning of the drug discovery part, and then pharmaceutical development is actually coming after that, and then going into clinical trials where you actually test everything that's been tested before. Let's say you screen 1,000, well, let's say 1,000,000 antibody candidates, and then you go to a few hundred, and then you go to 10, and then you go to 1 or 2, and then finally perhaps 1 that makes it to the market for that treatment of the disease. Well, the clinical trials in between take about 12, 15 years. That's a long period. It costs a lot of money. So if you're a pharmaceutical science major, then you're helping in developing these drugs, not per se in the clinic, but still beforehand. So you can also get into like the drug discovery target type of stuff. And my point being is that they're complementary and they're often very overlapping. You can have people that do like a PhD on a certain pharmaceutical project that has overlapping field type of stuff with something that is in biomed. It's within life science and within medical science. So if you're really focused on developing the drug with like medicinal chemistry, so you're making molecules shift and stuff like that, then you're more into the pharmaceutical science. Now there's a nuance in the sense that, at least in my university, if you do pharmacy, you can become a drugstore seller, like a pharmacist, let's say. I don't know how they call it perhaps in English. They call it apotheker in Dutch. By the way, I speak Dutch. That's my native language. So the point being is, if you study pharmacy, you can choose to go into that industry section and dig into that drug development, pharmaceutical development. Does that mean that you cannot get into that with a biomed degree? No, you can, because a lot of biomed graduates who go into industry can get into biopharmaceutical companies and also get into that drug development process because they've perhaps seen a lot of techniques that are the same. So because there's subtle differences sometimes and much overlap between, I'm talking bioscience engineering can also have like a major graduate thing going more into gene and cell therapy type of stuff. So you have to take the life science field more as a whole, and there's plenty of options with a base degree in biotech, biomed, pharmacy, even medicine. You can jump from medicine into industry as well. So there's a lot of options, but you need to know about this, of course, and that's why I'm doing all these sessions. So welcome to some other people that I see. I see some French. Que penses-tu de Galapagos? Ah, okay. Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I have shares of Galapagos and I bought some extra. So this is not investment advice that I'm giving. I just took a bit of a risk, let's say, but I was invested already a bit in Galapagos. And yeah, perhaps I hope that they will get it FDA approved sooner or later. I think it will happen eventually. So that's why I put in some extra money. So that's also something that I'm interested in this investing, and mostly in biotech stocks or pharma stocks, because that's what I know from my experience and my interest in the life science field. So I think this is a good way to like do this live stream now and then. I can see some questions that are interesting. I can't answer them all perhaps because we have to continue with the outline. Because I'm also... Oh, I forgot to press the record button. Sorry, guys. Sorry. Okay. Sorry to everyone who will rewatch this recording. I will press record now, and then I'll add in the comments below the answer to the first question. Okay? Make sure to not forget this for the second session. Record. Okay. Failed to... Okay. Check. So... Well, I see you still have some time, so I'll go over something in the chat box. If you have any remarks, additional things or something, you can always put them there. Let's pick one here from Sky. Should we do masters after completing biomedical science to follow a PhD? That's a very good question. I think in most cases, yes, you have to do a master's first before you can get a PhD, but mostly in the how do you call this, Anglo-Saxon world, like the US, UK, or perhaps in other parts of the world also, there's options to directly go into a PhD coming from your undergrad. But usually these programs are like a bit longer, and it's more of a version of doing the masters with PhD combined in one, where you still have like a set out course of certain topics that you need to take obligatory. Me, for instance, I don't have to take any courses that are given at the university by default. I can choose that if I want to. For instance, I would do some experiments with bioinformatics. There's a course on bioinformatics, I take that up. But apart from that, I'm very invested in my own project and not having to do any specific courses. So in most cases, yes, you go from undergrad, bachelor, 3 years, to masters, 2 years, and then to PhD. But there are exceptions, and some universities do this and others don't. So it depends on where you live and other factors. Going deeper then, I'll just go over some things. Xing Li, I don't know. Sorry if I pronounce your names wrong. Sorry for that. I'm just very grateful that you guys are here and I can do this with you, and hope to provide some answers. So where am I doing my PhD now? I'm doing it in Belgium, in Ghent University. It's very close to where I live. I've studied in Ghent also, so it's the closest university, and by chance, it's also one of the highest ranking ones. This year it came out, it's the highest ranking one in Belgium, on place 66 from the Shanghai ranking. So yeah, it's a good quality university, I can say. And yeah, I'm glad I studied here. Some other questions. Okay, how organic and inorganic chemistry is important for studying Bachelor of Science in Biomedical Science. Okay, yeah. So you have to have these basics in inorganic chemistry and in organic chemistry. And I've compared some curricula of certain biomed programs, and I'm going to make a video on that with the title What You Can Expect in Your First Biomed Year. But having a basis of chemistry is important to build off on into going into biochemistry, molecular biology. And I won't say you will forget a lot of the principles you learn, like let's say redox reactions, where you have reductions and oxidations, where you lose electrons or gain electrons. Don't ask me to do a certain exercise on redox reactions of basic chemistry again. I don't know how to do that anymore. But you got the basis, and you know that, for instance, redox reactions are important in oxidative stress when you induce that with inflammation. For instance, if you have inflammation in your body, you get oxidative stress, which releases reactive oxygen species, and then you get inflammation and some damage to your tissue. So yeah, you need to know this principle behind it, how these oxygen particles, radicals, are formed, and that again goes back to basic chemistry. And this accounts for a lot of things in biomedical science, like buffers, for instance, buffer capacity of media that you put on your cells. You need to know how a buffer works when you switch pH, stuff like that. Organic chemistry will be even more important because that forms the basis of biochemistry, and having the knowledge of certain types of compounds, maybe for like lipids or protein structures, DNA, for instance, also. So that's very important. Let's just go through the list further, and then we'll switch to the second question from the list. Got admitted into VIB study, Master's Molecular Biology. Oh, cool. Yeah, congratulations on that, Henry. Yeah, I remember you. You were admitted in Brussels. I remember. Can you tell some internship program in abroad in UK, USA for students studying undergraduate? Those are very specific things that I cannot help you with, because first, I'm from Belgium, and I suggest you do your own research, your proper research. That's something I want to instill to all of you guys also, is having a research mindset, and not only for the biomedical aspect or the life science aspect, but in general in life, to figure things out. Like a stupid example with this YouTube channel, I had to learn so much about internet things and building websites and doing streams. So that's also a form of research. And if you do things properly like that, if you create that attitude to find things for yourself, I'm not saying you can find all the answers always yourself, but you can start doing proper research. And then if you need help, then for instance for this, then I'm here. And there's always the option, if you have a certain specific university that you want to target, just contact the faculty board or something, or the administrative service, and ask them questions in a polite email. That can help as well. So, Dana K, you retracted the message. Okay, so it's already 7:17. I'm going to switch to the second question now before I go further, so I know where I am in the chat. I'll switch screens again. So, the second question. Hey, I just need proper guidance since I'm starting uni soon and I'm having a hard time choosing my major. Therefore, I want to know the difference between a bachelor's in biomedical science and medical laboratory science, since they're both laboratory related. Plus, can you get into research with only a bachelor's in that field? What's the difference between biomed and biotechnology? So these are actually a lot of questions in one, but nonetheless, I'm interested in learning about diseases and different methods of finding a cure. Generally, what do you think is the best option? I'm really glad if someone's able to help. So again, yeah, that's why I'm here, and let's answer that first question. So what is the difference between biomedical science and medical laboratory science? Well, I try to explain this as best as I can to a lot of you viewers, especially those in the UK. There's a discrepancy, well, not a discrepancy, there's an overlap in what the UK calls a biomedical scientist. They equalize it to either going into biomedical research, being a biomedical research scientist, or someone doing medical laboratory science in a hospital, clinical, medical labs. Those labs need accreditation. So I hope I can make this clear through this live session once and for all for those who are looking to study biomed. Clinical, medical, hospital labs need accreditation. What I mean by that, you need to be conform with your ability to handle patient samples, conform with ISO standards, because you're making results for a patient to aid in the doctor's diagnosis. So by law, you need to be competent for this. Does that mean you don't need to be competent for working in industry or research in academic labs? No, of course not. But you need to be able to have a certificate to prove that, to work in NHS labs in the UK or stuff like that. So the rest of the world calls the people working in the medical lab medical laboratory scientists or medical laboratory technicians. Other academic courses that are biomed, then those are aimed mostly at going into research, so aiming for you to go into a PhD or research institutes or into industry at large. Does that mean that you cannot make a switch going from a medical lab perhaps into industry? Yes, you can. Does that mean if you don't have accreditation that you can get into a medical lab as such? No, you need to get accreditation first. And that's what I want to make clear for the people from the UK, is that if you're certain that you want to work in a hospital, medical, clinical lab, then you best make sure that you have that IBMS accreditation in your course, because from what I've read, else you have to do it afterwards, and it takes a lot longer, or you have to do extra years of placements to get a portfolio, and then you can get a job that easily compared to those that did. Okay, I hope this is clear once and for all. So the essence of difference is that the work you do as a biomedical researcher, scientist, so those that deliver that kind of function, is perhaps in research, academic labs, and it's perhaps less routine, or it has a different focus. You're not diagnosing patients, you're perhaps doing research to patient samples to get a broader insight that might lead to a cure one day. But if you're in the medical lab, you need to know there and then what the diagnosis is. So I hope this becomes more clear in the terms of what's different between medical labs and the other focus that delivers biomedical scientists or biomedical research scientists. Okay, second to that, can you get into research with only a bachelor's degree in that field? So yes, you can, because I had colleagues that did that, but they took the more technical route. So that's basically biomedical laboratory techniques. In Belgium, we have a clear separation on this, because I, for instance, studying at uni, cannot handle patient samples because I'm not accredited. I had colleagues, for instance, working in my former biotech company who had a bachelor's level of biomedical lab techniques, who were not per se accredited, and also worked into R&D department with me on research doing development for drugs. So this is possible. You can also get into academic labs, and those are the lab techs, for instance, in my lab that are helping on the research. They do the technical stuff, and I sometimes say, okay, I have this stuff to do, this and this is the protocol, can you please make sure this happens? And these could be more routine type of things or more complicated things that you can learn them and that they do then on the spot. I see that, thank goodness, my university is credited, Laura Nunn. Okay, so yeah, that's, if you're really looking to get into that medical profession or the NHS type of stuff, I really suggest go to the IBMS site. They have a list there of all the unis that have the accredited courses. Plus, you can see what it takes to build that portfolio to get the HPCC Council type of stuff in the UK. Just go find that on the website, and then you will know more what I'm talking about. This is what I know from my research. If you want to get a second opinion, and if you don't trust what I'm saying completely, I suggest talk to someone, find someone who works in a lab like that, or through your university that can get you into contact, and they will, better than me perhaps, also explain some practical sides to this, how to complete that portfolio and type of stuff. Okay, so okay, I see there's a good friend here, Vera from PhD Coffee Time. Shout out to her, just stopping to say hi back, Vera. This has some lag time because yeah, I will see when you type hi back or something else. I think there's something like 20 or 30 seconds lag in this. And even though the internet connection is quite good because I'm sitting downstairs, it could be that there's an extra delay because I've sent my girlfriend upstairs. Yeah, it's Friday evening and I sent my girlfriend upstairs to be able to have the whole living room here for myself to chat with you guys. So she might be watching Netflix or something, and she might be taking up some broad space, some bandwidth of the internet. So apologies for that. Okay, I see you get the message right now, Vera. Going further into the second question. So what's the difference between biomedical science and biotechnology, and what provides a better job? Okay, the difference. So I explained this in my most watched video. Well, not per se the big difference. I say that there's a lot of overlap, and that you can perhaps no, it is like this. You can get more or like the same jobs. Biotech is focused more on applying the living organisms as a technology, like bacteria or yeast, or for instance, I have a biotechnology video also. For instance, if you make insulin from bacteria instead of like isolating it from a pancreas, which would be very insufficient, of course. This is biotechnology to make insulin for diabetes patients. So, but then again, you're in the healthcare section, so isn't this biomedical? Well, there's the overlap already. In biomedical science, because it's broad, you can apply medical biotechnology for certain things in biomedical science. I'm not saying that it's all like this, because for instance in neuroscience perhaps you might be more invested in things with MRI scans of the brain and electroencephalograms, and these might have a different focus. But the overlap between biotech and biomed, there is so much overlap, because you can actually choose in most biotechnology courses, I think already in your master's or perhaps before that, which major study track you want to go into. I'm talking agricultural, I'm talking maybe bioinformatics, I'm talking healthcare, and there you get the overlap with the biomedical side. Marine biology, Vera will know what I'm talking about. Makes my day. Yeah, cool. I'm looking forward to see a live thing from you also, Vera. So, oh, Fire Ice, welcome. I think, yeah, that's also a name that I remember. Again, very grateful that you guys are here and I can do this and that you're asking your questions, and I hope I can provide some answers for you. I must say I was a little bit nervous in the beginning. I'm beginning to calm down a bit because yeah, I'm doing this live. So what if I mess up? What if I do some stupid stuff? Or you get my point. So anyway, I was talking biotech, biomed, the overlap, which can land a better job. There's no telling. You can get a better job with a biomed degree than with a biotech degree, vice versa, depending on which sector you go into in a pharmaceutical company, or there's so many variables what determines your job role later on, your salary. There's so many factors. And I explained this also in one of my videos, career influencing factors, that I have in my biomedical science job list. So again, if you haven't seen that, welcome to check that out. Let's move on to another part of that question. No, okay, that's that. I said I would make this like 60 minutes or something. I'm seeing that I'm talking a lot and it takes up a lot of time, so we can go over it, no problem, if my girlfriend is okay with that. I think she is. Okay, so I'll dive to the next question then. Hi there, my dream is to do biomedical sciences. Will that help me out? Will that help me to branch out to do biotech? Oh, okay, so this is more or less related to the second question. The thing is, I would love to branch out to various subjects and fields in biology, but I'm a little confused. Can you help? Well, related to what I said earlier, if you want to branch out to do biotech, you can do that with a biomed degree into biotech industry. One comment on that is that I also started this channel to spread the awareness, perhaps to biotech employers or recruiters, that people with a biomed degree are capable of doing a lot of technical stuff and they can be used in pharmaceutical and biotech companies. This is the case in Belgium. This is recognized more and more. Although sometimes, like I mentioned in my career video, sometimes it's not explicitly stated. So I'm wondering if the recognition of biomed degree for recruiters and biopharmaceutical companies in the other parts of the world is equally being recognized more and more, because we deserve the recognition. And another factor is how you market yourself. If you can say, okay, I know these techniques through my thesis and I've gained experience in this and that, and I can see these skills applied in this function that you provide here as a job role in this pharmaceutical company, well, then you can play that out, you can emphasize that, and then maybe there's a lot of other factors. Maybe they don't like your personality. Could be that you don't land that job. That could be. So there's options. So you can branch out to biotech. You can also branch out beforehand if you're sick of doing your undergrad in biomed, and then you can do a switch program. You study 1 year extra to catch up on some biotech courses from the undergrad of that before you switch to a master's in biotech, and the other way around. If you did biotech for an undergrad, you can switch to biomed also. This is at least at my university, so I think this is a general concept more or less. Again, because like I said in the beginning, life science is such an overlapping big field where there's a lot of options. Okay, so I'll go to the next question. Which chemistry is required for biomedical science? I mean physical, organic, or inorganic? Okay. So I think I answered or touched up on that question also a bit beforehand. It is important, and depending on the course that the given or the chosen university provides, you will have more or less organic, inorganic chemistry, perhaps more applied or perhaps basic. For instance, in some university that I've checked out for their program in the UK, they immediately have something like biological chemistry or applied chemistry. And then in my university, my first year was highly theoretical. My first year was mathematics, physics, inorganic chemistry, organic chemistry, and this was basically a recap of everything you saw in high school. Okay, or it's secondary school, I think you call it in the UK. So all that knowledge was to be revisited in one semester. So that's very intense, but you have that broad basis. And it's also more or less to teach you how to study big chunks rather than, well, the content is of course also very important, but the big chunks to memorize and to apply, that's an attitude you have to learn in going to university. Okay, I'll move a little bit more quickly. Next question. Can you go on to do medical research from doing biomedical science degree? Yes, you can. Yes, you can go on to do medical research because, yeah, what is medical research? It includes biomedical research, it includes clinical research. So if you're talking about clinical research, with a biomed degree, you can become a clinical trial manager or clinical trial coordinator. And this is really, remember what I talked about, the drug life cycle where you test in clinical phases in human patients. With a biomed degree, you can be the coordinator of that because oftentimes these studies happen in multiple hospitals, perhaps in different countries, and you can be the coordinator, having an overview of which patients are recruited and this and that. So yes, you can get into medical research if you mean clinical research with this. If you mean translational research, that is actually the goal of biomedical science, where you go from bench to bedside, meaning that you have basic concepts in biology, mean that drug target that you're trying to find, and then you translate that into something that could be a therapy or a drug that you can administer to patients. That's the translational aspect. So you're doing basic research with in mind that you have to make this into something applicable to use for healthcare to help patients in the hospital, or yeah, not per se in the hospital, but you know what I mean, patients with illnesses that can have treatments or perhaps a cure. Moving on. Another question. Share my screen again. Do you think biomedical sciences degrees programs have changed a lot between when you graduated and now? And if so, how have they changed? Just from your own experience with your own program and maybe the program now on the same university or other programs in Belgium. Really curious because medical science world has evolved a lot, and I wonder if that also reflects on the education focus. Okay, yes, so first of all, have they changed? Yeah, slightly. I have checked the curricula of the course in my university and how it changed compared to, I'm 30 years old. I graduated in 2012. Back then I was 22, a long time ago. So has it changed in terms of maybe some rearrangements of courses that were given in the first year that moved to the second year and vice versa? Can't say exactly which ones. What did change a lot is, you had additional majors. For instance, in my time, I don't think we had systems biology as a major. So systems biology is where you integrate a lot of data coming from omics, genomics, transcriptomics, metabolomics, proteomics. Omics are a concept where you look at the cell and you quantify you research changes in every protein present in that cell. Not just looking at one gene product or one gene, you take a look at everything. And that is a lot of data, and that is the preset to go into systems biology. You didn't have that back in my day because it was still, not as delineated. I think it was still a part of being integrated with biochemistry type of stuff, and just simply being, how should I say, not put in such a small compartment yet, not being a field on its own. Let's call it like this. So in terms of that, that has changed. In other things, I think courses are updated because CRISPR-Cas9, genome editing, for instance, I hadn't heard about this before back in my day because it wasn't implied yet. It wasn't fully validated. It wasn't broadly known. There was a time when nanobodies were not known and were not in courses. So because of new scientific discoveries, you have to update your courses constantly. So good luck to every teacher or professor because your course is always dynamic and you have to update this. So don't take for granted that these professors, if they mention stuff that is new, they have to put work in that to prepare how to explain this to you guys because it's new for them too, or they have to apply it perhaps in their lab. So kudos to everyone who has to do that, and just keep that in mind that your professor or your teacher will have a lot of work updating his courses, and it takes a lot of effort. So you should be grateful. I'm going to drink a bit first because I'm talking so much right now. All right. Going into another question. I'm seeing it's 19th, so it's 7 p.m. 38 minutes. I still have time. I will switch again. Yes. Hello, I'm applying to biomedical. I wonder if I have to take a placement year. I'm from Scotland. My course is 4 years without the placement year. Okay. So again, coming back to me saying that you need to check if your course is accredited or not for IBMS. If you're from Scotland, you're from the UK, so this applies to you. So again, for everyone from the UK watching this recorded or live, the IBMS accreditation, if it's a 4-year course, I think there will be a sandwich type of thing in there, or perhaps I have to reread the question. It's an undergrad that she said. My course is 4 years without the placement year. So perhaps this is 3 years undergrad and then 1 year of master, and then you have to take, or it's optional to take a placement year. Again, if you're looking to get into that medical lab, I suggest highly that you do placements, that you get experience in a lab, that you get hands-on practice. In my master years, for instance, you get a thesis project assigned, and that is, let's say, equivalent to that kind of placement, but that's built into your masters. So that's where you get the experience in a real time, in a real life lab, okay? So I highly suggest to check out your own courses that you've selected and see what the options are. If it's a sandwich kind of year, so again, for the UK people, if it's a sandwich kind of year, and if the placements are optional, and if they recommend taking the placements to go into the medical lab. From what I've known, from what I've read, it's best to take these placement years because you have to build your portfolio for your IBMS accreditation if you want to get into that medical lab setting. So it depends on what your aim is to get into. In general, if you're going into research as well, why not do a placement year? You get relevant experience. You might say, okay, maybe I can skip my placement year and then I can get into the job market faster and maybe already get paid. Well, maybe this can work against you, because if you had done a placement year, you can show already some real life experience, and that can set you aside from the competition that's applying on that job. So would it be worthwhile to study an extra year? Maybe it would be, maybe it isn't. Maybe you can financially compensate that with some side jobs or anything. This is very specific to your situation. So to everyone in this situation, try to outweigh the pros and cons and highly inform yourself with what the recommendation is of the people that organize that course in your specific university. Okay, I will switch again to the chat now to catch up on some questions, if that's okay. I think I'm like sinking away a bit like this the more and more I talk. Okay, so where was I in the chat? To anyone who came in later, welcome. And I think I stopped somewhere here. What I plan to do after my PhD. Well, I think I will go back to industry. What type of function? I'm not sure yet, but I think my heart will lie in research, because yeah, that's what I like most. That's why I'm doing my PhD right now. And perhaps take those skills and go back to that, with that, into biopharmaceutical companies. That's my first thought, but things can change. As I'm doing research for this channel and try to explain certain types of jobs, I get across jobs that I didn't know that much about yet. So for instance, I have a video on medical science liaison, and doing research on that job type, this appealed to me also. So yeah, who knows what else could be relevant for me. And yeah, I don't have a glass ball to look into the future, but I should perhaps start thinking about this already. If you're wondering if I would stay academic, I've contemplated it to maybe do postdoc, but the chances of like going into a professorship, those are second to none, given the increased amount of PhDs that are delivered. There's high competition to get tenure track. I mean, high amounts of stress. I hear this from all over. I think there's a general problem with academia and research. I think many will abide by this, will confirm this. I think Vera, for instance, also from PhD Coffee Time, that there's something wrong in academia with the research, publication pressure, and yeah, you need to be lucky, and there's so many factors. I think I will thrive more again going back to industry. Does that mean that I don't like research? I like research, but there's so much around it, maybe administratively, politically, I don't know. So that's answered. Is University of Greenwich, I think call 911, I'm a killer. Okay, I hope you're not a killer, for real. Yeah, I know you from comments also. I don't know if university, there's options to check if you like ranking biomedical science courses. If you type that into Google, perhaps you can rank according to quality of biomed courses, and you can see where that ranks. Again, Greenwich, UK, you have to check and align what you want to do later on, the medical lab setting or not. Is it accredited? So yeah, is it close to you? Do you want to move and have student housing and stuff like that in order to get into a better university perhaps, or slightly better? Will that change your options for jobs later on? I don't know. Let's say maybe in some cases it will play a role from what university you graduated. But again, that's how you market yourself. If you have skills that suit a job that you want, and you have these technical skills, and you say, okay, I can do this and this and this for your company because I've learned this and this and this in school, and you're graduated from a lesser university, and then someone else comes in and he has less relevant skills from a higher university. I think the logical thing would be that they take the person with the most relevant skills, of course. See what I mean? So there's nuances there. Another question. I love to work in dental industry. Is it possible for biomedical engineering bachelor? That's a question that I will have to get back on to you. I will note this down. Dental industry, I think so. If you like do biomedical engineering and you're aiming at developing new tools for dentists to use, then I think yes. Okay. Have you done an Erasmus internship? No, I never studied abroad. I was always in Belgium, always near Ghent. This is where I live. This is where I studied. This is where I work. So yeah, I'm very localized. But I do love to travel a lot, though. I do love to travel a lot and experience new cultures. So Erasmus would have been a cool option for me. But yeah, that didn't happen. I don't think it was incorporated for my biomedical science program. I don't know. I have to check back. Another question. Can someone with a biomedical science degree go into pharmaceutical development in the UK? Okay, I think I touched up on that earlier again. Yes, I think you can. Your competition will be someone perhaps with a pharmacy degree or a biotech degree or bioscience engineering. Again, life science pool, the life science graduates, so degrees from all over this, can apply to biopharmaceutical industry. And if you have the relevant skills to market and sell yourself to that job position, then yeah, I don't see why there's no option for you to go into pharmaceutical industry, because I did it myself. Going into biotech, I could work for a pharmaceutical company. I know this. This is in Belgium and I know this is possible. So why wouldn't it be in another country? The only problem perhaps would be that the degree would be less recognized. And that's again why I'm doing this channel, for one reason, to create more awareness, to push the degree into being visible. And I know that maybe not a lot of recruiters or people from companies are watching this, but maybe one day if I spread this through my LinkedIn or something like that, then maybe this can help and increase the chances. Because sometimes now in the job vacancies, it's listed under the or equivalent, which means the whole of the life science pool graduates. So yeah, you can do that. You can do that. I strongly believe this is the case because I did it myself. I think in the US there's also no problem with doing this. I know a YouTube channel that's called Cheeky Scientist, and he has a PhD in immunology, and he's helping PhDs making a transition now. So okay, this is free advertising for you, Cheeky. So he's advertising for PhDs in life sciences to go into industry. And I think he's probably helping a lot of PhDs in biomedical field. So why not? Why not? Moving on. Okay. There's plenty more questions that came in. What do you think about the future of biomed in Belgium? Do you think someone with a master's degree can get a good paid job always in Belgium? So I'm thinking that you are from Belgium. I think so. Yeah, Fire Ice. I think we talked in Dutch also in one of the comments. I think it was you. So in any case, can you get a good paid job? I think so, because each year there are people that the alumni from Ghent University, they come to talk, to say which jobs they do. And you hear people that are then currently doing a PhD, or they're doing a postdoc, or they're a medical radiation specialist, or they're a clinical trial coordinator. So I think the option is always there, but because there's so many options and you don't know all these options, that you don't know yet what suits you and how you can progress. There's multiple career steps you can take, go sideways, you can switch perhaps, and a focus that was, an emphasis that was put on the graduating as a biomed, at least in my years, I still think this is the case, is that you should remain generalist within biomed, meaning that if you did neuroscience, why not go into something that is tissue engineering also? You should be fluid. I'm not going to say that if you did something with neuroscience and you have these specific techniques that could help you land a job with those specific techniques, and that if someone else is applying for a job more in the tissue engineering stem cell like type of stuff where you do a lot of flow cytometry, that they will have the advantage because they have these techniques. But if you're, for instance, enthusiastic, and again, these are factors that play such a role when you apply for a job. If you're more enthusiastic and you're more motivated and you're showing that you're really willing to get that job and you're interested in that, then perhaps you can beat the competition and get into a job like that. So that's what I want to say with this. I know a lot of people from my year that graduated, they all have jobs. They did PhDs. They are now application specialists or working in pharmaceutical companies. I saw a lot of biomedical science graduates roll into my old biotech company as well. So yeah, I think there's plenty of options. You just need to be careful to know where to look and know all your options in Belgium and in any other country. I am too camera shy for life. Okay, Vera. No problem. I was nervous too, and I still kind of am. I'm talking so rapidly. It's almost 8 o'clock and I still have a few questions to go. I'm going to wrap up here on the chat first, and then we'll go into the other questions. Paid PhD in the US has to be sourced from either a full scholarship or in smaller contracts from TA, graduate assistant. Being paid in the US, usually you don't have that much student loans, if I'm correct. If you do a PhD, especially if you're a TA, then you don't have to make those student loans. You don't get into debt as you would for a master's degree, I think, in the US. In any case, I want to say this. Every time I see a video of how costly it is to study in the US and perhaps also in the UK, this baffles me. I can imagine in Belgium it will also be costly, because if parents can't provide, for instance, student housing and having their kids for the meals and stuff like that. But like the tuition fee or the books, that is greatly less costly compared to the inscription money, so the subscription, the enrollment money in like things in the US or the UK. And I think this is political, socio-political. I think because we have a strong social security system here in Belgium and perhaps in other European countries, that this explains the difference, of course. So I'm digressing a bit, but that's also the goal of this session, is to digress a little bit. I'm looking forward also to the feedback, because maybe someone will say that I'm talking way too fast and that you can't follow. You can rewatch, because I'm recording. I'm recording now already 42 minutes. I will put timestamps on this to which questions I will tackle, and then make sure that you can rewatch for everyone who needs to, of course. Going further. What's the FMDI? FMDI, I don't quite know what you mean. FMDI? What's the difference between medical biotechnology and biomedical science? Are the job prospects the same? Well, again, so yeah, it comes down to the question of biotech, biomed. Job prospects are, the nuances are slightly different. If you did biotech, and well, you have to make a choice at some point. If you're in your master's and you focus on healthcare biotech, then you're going more or less into the biomedical field. You can choose in biotech to go agricultural. So then you're into food and crop science and making genetically modified organisms. You can go into industrial biotech. So these options are there if you study biotech, but that's in your undergrad. And then if you go to your Master of Science, you have to pick a direction. So yeah, there's a lot of overlap. If you take the red biotechnology, the healthcare biotechnology, and biomedical science, more or less you will have the same job prospects. It might be that you have to put in a little more work to sell yourself with your skills, being a biomedical graduate in some countries compared to others. I know, for instance, here in Ghent, in Belgium, we don't have a problem with that. Like I said before, my former colleagues were also a lot of biomedical science graduates who came in the years after me, so I don't see a problem there. Other degrees that my former colleagues were like industrial engineer, specification biochemistry, bioengineering, specification cell and gene technology. Other biomedical lab technicians, biomedical scientists. I think there was also someone. What's the degree called? Bioengineer. I think I said this. No biomedical engineers. That I didn't work with directly. But you get my point. So we were working in a unit, and we were all doing the same type of work, but everyone came from a slightly different background with different degrees. So yeah, that's what I want to say. Job options are there with the base of a life science degree. You have to know where to look and get familiar with what the job market offers. Going to drink again a little bit here because I'm really getting a dry mouth. So much talking. Okay, further going down with the chat box. So Ahmed asks, is studying undergraduate of biomedical science in Malaysia good? I recently had a question of someone what the salary prospects were of biomedical science degree in Malaysia. What I found at first, and I suggest you should verify this on Google yourself and try to get into contact with people that work in the biomedical field in Malaysia. Again, I'm slipping away here in my scene. The job prospects are also very country specific. And what I mean by that is that the Western world, so being the US, Europe, Scandinavian countries, China is also being a big player, South Korea, Japan, countries like that. If countries invest, Israel also for instance, if countries invest a lot of their GDP into research, then mostly this is a sign that you will more easily get into a job function or a job in pharmaceutical industry or in research with your life science degree. On the other end are countries like perhaps maybe some African countries, some South American countries. I'm not saying all, I'm not specifying too much here, but if you don't have a specific, if the budget does not flow back a lot to industry and there's not a lot of bioscience hubs or pharmaceutical company hubs in that country, then perhaps the options for a job might be less. And that also explains a lot, I think, why a lot of people want to get an education in like the US or Canada or Europe. And these are geopolitical things. So coming back again to Malaysia, I thought I read that there's not that much investment in research and that there's many people that want to go into research go to Singapore. That's one article that I read. I will give you this. So I suggest you do some proper research further on that. New questions are coming. Logalobi, when will I put another live video? Next week. Next week I will do another live session. So if you have to go now, it's also being recorded. People who can't stay longer than 1 hour, no problem. It's being recorded. It will be uploaded. And if your question is not answered, there will be other sessions next week and the week after. And then maybe I can stay more to the program, or perhaps scan a fourth and a fifth, and maybe how much is needed. Maybe I should prioritize also some questions related to the studying, because a lot of people now are in the phase of selecting a program. They're deciding what to study, biotech, biomed, and they need that information. So I will make sure to prioritize these type of questions in the next sessions. But that doesn't mean I don't want to please the people who are here live for perhaps PhD related questions. It's always hard to do good for everyone, but I try as hard as I can, and I hope everyone can appreciate this. So going further, so now it's 8 o'clock. I'm already at 60 minutes, so we'll go overtime, maybe extend to 1 hour and a half. Vera said, only to postdoc if you are really sure about wanting to be a professor. Agreed, that's what I've read a lot myself, so that's valuable advice for anyone starting biomed and looking to get into research. Postdoc only if you want to be a professor, and that will be very hard and become ever more hard. Okay? Can a biomedical science alumni become a haematologist? I think so. but depends on what you mean with being a hematologist. If you're like the medical technical hematologist who only does like red blood cell counts and type of stuff, you can specialize in hematology. If you're saying you're doing research to like hematology, like anemia diseases, sickle cell anemia, or blood cancers, leukemia, ALL, acute lymphoblastic leukemia, or AML, all the types of blood cancers, you can get into research for that as well. Hematology is like a certain branch of medicine. And I do research now in hepatology, so studying the liver. You can do cardiology, you can do immunology, you can do nephrology for the kidneys. There's plenty of organ systems you can target. So yes, that will be an option to go into hematology with a biomed degree. Is German language compulsory for a biomedical job in Germany and Belgium? In Belgium, no. I don't think you have to learn Dutch or French. Dutch and French are our native tongues, and German a little bit. English is fine if you want to work here or get into research. That will be fine. Like former colleagues in my biotech company, they were learning some Dutch, but it's not that they're fluent in like 1 year or so. It's very international. So in Germany, I don't know. Maybe you have to, for certain jobs. I have a friend who became a biomedical engineer. He moved to Germany and his wife is a doctor. And for her profession, because she sees patients, of course she had to learn German. I don't think he learned German, maybe out of interest. But you should check that out specifically for some jobs perhaps. Depending on which company you're targeting, if they're more international, then maybe no, and English is enough. I can't really answer that fully with 100% certainty. So then, with an undergrad degree, okay, Ahmed, I'm still answering your question. With an undergrad degree, become a hematologist, yes, but then it's probably like the medical lab technician type of thing, where you have to be IBMS accredited if you want to work in the UK. Else you should look for a medical laboratory science course to become a hematologist. Again, in other countries besides UK, if you take biomedical science, in most cases the goal is to proceed to a master's degree, to a graduate study, because with a theoretical academic based undergrad only, you don't have enough experience. Being that my example in my university, if I would have stopped after my undergrad, after 3 years, I wouldn't be able to get a job as easily if I would have done that undergrad in a professional bachelor type of setting. We call this hogeschool here in Belgium, and yeah, it's confusing because if you translate that, it translates into high school, and high school means something different in the US because it's lower. These are semantics just on the side. So the difference between those two undergrads that I mentioned is the one in the high school, the hogeschool, is more professionally focused and more technique focused. And those were the people that worked with me in my biotech company who had more hands-on training. Me, for instance, I didn't have much practical knowledge already. I learned that in my grad. So in most cases, it's the goal, if you go from the theoretical undergrad, to go into the grad. To answer your question, I hope that is sufficient. Is the work repetitive of biomed? This could be, depending on which job function you do. You could be more project-based, for instance, where you take a project maybe from beginning to end and do certain types of analyses, and there's certain types of different assays that you can do. Or there might be a company that is in a certain stage further and they have compartmentalized much more, where you have to, for instance, there's multiple projects, but there's the same technique and you work on the same technique to push those multiple projects through. If you're in a medical lab, then you will process a lot of samples with robotics, for instance. You can have robotics also in research and pharmaceutical industry, of course. Can there be a drag? Yeah, if you're working in a medical lab, this could be. If you're analyzing blood samples again and again and it's automated, this could be. Could you make a switch to different type of assays? Perhaps, if you have a rotation kind of system. I mentioned this in my day in the life video. I think any job has a certain amount of drag and a certain amount of repetition that you cannot escape from. And perhaps if you're sick and tired of some job in 5 years and you've taken enough technical and soft skills from that, maybe you can go to another job and learn something new if that's what you want at that point. But repetition will be present in a lot of job types. It depends on which specific ones that you land up in or are aiming at. So repetition, yeah, it could be. Thanks, Vera. I'm doing great. Yeah, okay, thanks. I like your system of organizing the previous questions. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, it's good to have some feedback. If any feedback you want to leave behind this session, you can do that. Let's say, well, I will create a poll or something. What you think I could improve or do better. When will you put it? Oh, okay, yeah, I answered this. So there will be other live sessions. Which countries offer paid PhD positions for international students? Good question. Yeah, well, if you could get into a PhD program in Belgium or in Germany, I think you will have tuition based PhD programs. I think there's also in other countries the stipend. So the stipend is usually what they call the reimbursement for PhD students, and usually this would be lower considered being in a job already. I hear this is a lot the case in the US or the UK, so you should consider it as a lengthening of your study, doing a PhD. That's why I also will say that you really should only do it if you like research and want to do the topic and have a period of research and get the skills from that to take that further. It's still a study. So in Belgium here, it's more like a first job, but you're a student and you're an employee. So you're an employee of the government because you're a government official kind of position, let's say. So you're both a student and you're both an employee. So I pay taxes. My colleagues don't because they're this is a nuanced different to say. I have a TA position. So it's called AAP, Assistant Academic Staff, if you translate that. So I pay taxes. My colleagues don't because they have a scholarship, but they're nonetheless also enrolled as an employee of the university. So perhaps in other European countries this will be the case. I don't know for sure. I will make sure to check this out. Okay. What will be the highest paid job with a biomedical science degree? Okay, and then is MSL the highest paying job related to the biomed degree? Yeah, okay. From what I've researched, I have this video on the MSL. I think, well, okay, let's say directly and, well, not directly, because if you look at that video, it's kind of hard to get into an MSL position. You have to network a lot and usually you have to build up some experience throughout the life science field before you can get into that MSL position. So it's a high-paying job, yes. I recently had a comment from a recruiter that by accident, or yeah, funny thing, I recognized his name and he is in my network on LinkedIn. So this is funny because he said in the northern part of Europe that the MSL position is something like 70 to 80 or 80 to 90,000 a year that you can land on an MSL job as a starter. In the US, you can go up to $130,000. So that's the fourth highest paying job in the US. So in the US, they have, yeah, the pharma industry is advertising a lot there also on commercials and stuff. It's different from Europe. You don't see commercials for pharmaceuticals like that in Europe. So it's a different world. So that is the highest paying job in the US. I think with a biomed degree, you can get into that with also a medical degree. And more they ask for a PhD. So combined with being that it's a hard job to get into, you also already need a PhD. So you have to study longer. So there's quite some requirements to get into that job. Is it the highest paying job per se? Not necessarily. Imagine you become a CSO or a CEO. Or the project head maybe, or you have more management position where you delegate to a whole branch of a certain company. I think these will be high-paying jobs as well, and perhaps even better than the MSL job. So depends on how high you want to climb, what your ambition is. But again, this will come at a cost. You will have to be continuously learning. You will have to get some management skills, some business skills perhaps, that can aid you to step up into that company. So yeah, highest paying job, there's nuances. It correlates perhaps with your ambition, with what you want to go into later on. So hope that answers your question a bit. Is biomedical science to give a career as a forensic scientist? I think there's separate courses for this. Not in Belgium, I think. I think in the Netherlands they have a separate course to become a forensic scientist. I'm just looking away now because my girlfriend is going to the kitchen. As I said, I'm going overtime, but yeah, no problem at all. Can you become a forensic scientist? I don't know if you could. Perhaps if you study something extra, you could get into that. But I think the requirement is also that you have to do police academy. I think at least in Belgium, I picked this up, so I will have to do further research on this, because I don't know if all this is integrated in one single course already. I have to check. Okay. Thanks for being so interactive. Yeah, no problem. I kind of like switched to become more interactive with this chat. Still have some other questions though, but not, perhaps maybe less relevant. We'll see. Click to read your unread notifications. Sorry guys, there's skipped frames. Okay, yeah, skipped frames, no problem. This will be for the recording. Thanks for being interactive, no problem. My question is, are the prospects and possible benefits of going into public health masters after a biomed undergrad? What the prospects are? I think you can get into public health related type of jobs with a biomed degree also. If you're focused more on like epidemiological stuff, I had a course on epidemiology. I don't know if this is integrated in every kind of course program structure of every university. I think that's the option. I know people who graduated, who are, for instance, in a governmental organization, graduated with a biomedical science degree, just to be clear. They're working for the government, and it's an agency that keeps track of all the adverse effects of certain pharmaceuticals that are already distributed and are being used for patients. So that's what we call a fourth line of post-market phase, where you monitor, even though the drug is approved and patients take it, it might be that the drug, when it hits an even bigger target population, that you might have additional effects. And this is more like into the public health space, where you monitor this to keep track of adverse events that you can report to the company, and then they have to put that into the small note that you get with your box of pills, for instance. So would it be advisable to do an additional master's for public health? That I don't know. Maybe there's nuances. I suggest you check that out. I will also do some extra research on how these things overlap, just to be clear in the future. Is it possible to get into biomedical entrepreneurship business without doing a research-based master or PhD? Not a big fan of bench work. Okay, good question. Good question. Yeah. Is it possible? It sure is. It sure is. What I've heard is that you don't need a PhD to go to the business side of biotech or biopharma. If you go into business relations or that type of stuff, you don't need a PhD. For instance, my friend who graduated with me and then did an additional track to become biomedical engineer, he is in the business side now of radiation machines, and he didn't do a PhD. So he didn't need those skills, but he is in business. He's in business development. Then you would probably better do something like an MBA or an MBE, where you get some business skills or some additional economic type of stuff. That would be my advice to you. Does that mean that if you do a startup or entrepreneurship that you will need people who did a PhD? Well, mostly if you launch a company and you build that on a certain platform or certain technology that came from university, you will need specialists, of course, who know the technology and have to elevate that into something that can be something that can be developed into a product to help patients. So you will need best of both worlds. You will need someone who knows business side. You will need someone who knows to translate that finding, or that's called tech transfer. A lot of universities also have a department that's related to that, to make sure that the transition of going to something marketable happens more easily. Because there's also a lot of legal stuff with patents and all that type of stuff that comes along with it. So yeah, entrepreneurship, it's a really cool thing to do. It's risky, of course, but if you have the balls and you have the resources and you have an idea, then why not be involved into the business side more with your biomedical master's degree? I'm pretty sure there will be some people, some alumni that I know, I have to check my pool of people that I know who maybe did something like that, more or less. If you watched my interview with Elena Siranova, she also started a biotech company with 3 people based on certain I can't recall exact the technology, but well, highly welcome you to rewatch maybe that episode to get more insights on that. So it's definitely possible. What's the difference between biomed and biochemistry? So I addressed this earlier. So the biggest difference is that the options are broader if you take biochemistry. Well, broader in the sense that you study biochemistry undergrad and you can choose to go into plants, or you can choose to develop bacteria that produce enzymes to reduce industrial waste. So that has nothing to do with diseases or with healthcare, but you can choose that as well, and that's called red biotechnology. If you go into biomed, you're directly saying you're interested in diseases, so you're directly interested in healthcare. So if your biotechnology aspects would come into biomed, then it would be the red aspect, more or less. And then within biomed, you can choose a field of majors going from neurology, going into cardiology, hepatology, neuroscience, stem cells, tissue engineering. You get my point? So the big difference is that you have the option to work more with plants or industrial type of things within biotechnology. But if your interest is in healthcare and diseases, then both fields can overlap a lot. Also with bioscience or biomedical engineering, you have courses in biomedical engineering, majors that specifically target the tissue engineering part. And that's where it overlaps a lot with the biomedical science, because you can choose tissue engineering for that as well. And in a lot of cases, maybe biomedical engineers will work together with biomedical scientists. The one will develop a new scaffold, and the other one will do some science on how to tweak stem cells to attach to that scaffold more easily to grow artificial organs. So that's, I get so excited when I talk about this stuff. So yeah, that's my nerdy side. I hope my enthusiasm for this also goes through the screen to you guys, to make you more interested and more hyped for these, for your future perhaps in life science. And again, I'm so grateful I can do this to deliver some insights to you guys. And thanks for being here. And thanks Alessandro, that these videos are really helpful. Good to hear. Is it hard to get a job as a biomedical scientist right after you finish your degree? What points should we keep in mind if you want to secure a place as a biomedical scientist? So again, this depends. If you're talking biomedical scientist, working into the medical lab, and in the UK, then you need the accreditation. So to land a job right after, I suggest you get the experience with the placement years to get your portfolio built up, so you can say that, oh, hey IBMS, I've completed my portfolio. You can put that to the council, and then you can work in NHS, clinical medical lab type of stuff, blah, blah, blah. If you mean the biomedical research side, then again, this is a concept that comes back a lot, and I sometimes get frustrated because the UK makes it very hard. Why didn't they just call medical laboratory science, or MLTs, medical laboratory technologist? Why didn't just call it that? I think maybe there are courses that are targeting that and are called like this in the UK. But then again, maybe biomedical science courses, they put the IBMS option and they paste it on that course to have the option as well for those people that started one in the university branch of going into research, but maybe said, okay, maybe I want to work in a medical lab. And then they can have that IBMS accredited course and then take it from there. So yeah, that's a bit hard to explain. And yeah, it's a bit frustrating for me. I try to explain it as best as I can. And maybe one day, sooner or later, I will interview someone from the UK itself to have it cleared out once and for all for everyone in the future looking to apply for biomed in the UK. Maybe it will change and they will have additional insights on how difficult perhaps it is and how confusing, and then maybe switch their programs to something that's called medical laboratory science, or you know what I mean. So when I would study biochemistry, I could become a biomed engineer. No, not directly. Biomedical engineering is something else. This is something else. You're focused on the engineering part. So you're focused on building stuff. You're like making, how should I say? You're trying to make new scanners, new MRI scanners, new CT scanners. You're trying to build new robotic arms to help in surgery. You're trying to build artificial organs. Could you become a biomedical engineer? Yes, if you study your undergrad in biochemistry and you want to make a switch to biomedical engineering. Why not? Maybe you have a shortened track to make the switch. You could do your master's in biochemistry, then do the shortened track to bridge the gap and catch up on engineering subjects, and then go into biomedical engineering industry. So I know I said the life science field has a lot of overlap. You can go like from biochemistry to a master's in biomed, or vice versa, or from pharmacy. There's a lot of overlap in that. The exception would be biomedical engineering, because there's a lot of focus on engineering. So that's a lot of mathematics and applied science that you will have to catch up on. Biomedical science is not that big on mathematics. Perhaps in the first years, some applied mathematics and statistics is very important, of course, but it's a whole different ball game from engineering. What are the most important modules to focus on when becoming a biomedical scientist? The modules, yeah, I think this is very dependent on. I should see what your course is like and which university. I think you're saying, where should I put more effort in studying? If I'm studying to become a biomedical scientist, I'm not going to say this course or this course. I just say do your best for everything. Okay, that's the first thing. And another thing is you have to consider it year by year, because in the beginning you will need a strong foundation of the basics like chemistry and organic chemistry. I think each module builds upon another layer and another layer. So yeah, I think everything is important. Sorry to break it to you, but I think you will have to do your best for every module. In terms of picking modules in a flexible program, I should see your program. So maybe you can email me later on, and then perhaps we can check which modules would align your future prospects best, and maybe I can get some more insights in your specific biomed program for that. Is research and working in a medical lab different? If yes, how is it? It's a bit confusing. Yeah, okay, I get it. I know it's confusing. A medical lab, so medical clinical hospital lab, is where you do routine analyses to diagnose patients. So these techniques are set according to laws, according to the function of the lab. I mean, if you do a blood test, I think if you do a blood test in this country or that country, every patient should be assured that if they do their red blood cell count, that it's accurate in a sort of way. So these are very routine-based type of assays that you will do. Is it different? Yes, in a research lab, you could perhaps, if you do research, you could switch more easily from different types of assays, and you're not diagnosing patients per se. You're using their data to extract some biological insights, to extrapolate that to a bigger cohort and to come up with some target insights, the biology of a disease. So where you're diagnosing the patients for a disease in a medical lab or following up on their treatment that the doctor ordered, you're doing research in a research lab or in industry to develop a drug or to generate new knowledge about the disease to maybe create future new drugs. Okay, get the point a bit? Is it easy to get a job in the NHS after Bachelor of Biomedical Science degree, including the year placement, or would I need a postgraduate degree, extra experience? I've heard it's extremely hard to get a job. Well, I will concur with this. I've indeed heard some rumors, and I put this in my last video, that the NHS type of biomed type of stuff, that it's becoming oversaturated. So that's why I also would highlight that if you're in the UK and you're focused on becoming a biomedical scientist working in the medical lab and you need the accreditation and stuff, you will have an advantage if you do those accreditation things, if you do the placement year, build your portfolio, and then still if you have a lot of competition, then you should not fear, because there are other options like in the pharmaceutical industry or in research labs perhaps. You can reorient. But of course I can get it if you're really focused on doing that job and building a career out of that, getting into the medical clinical lab, the routine-based diagnostic patterns of patients, then yeah, I can imagine this will be sad for you. So I recommend doing some more research yourself also and asking around, specifically in the UK, to corroborate on what you've heard. I see questions keep coming in, so I think we're already at 90 minutes. I will check a little for a few seconds now which questions that I have on my list still. I think I had 3 more questions. No, 4 more questions. 4 more questions. Okay, I will answer these. I see they're not so much, except one maybe, but I will transfer that one to the next session. And I think I will wrap up here, guys. You're welcome, Nisha. You're very welcome. So I noted, I think, Gerald, I will just wrap up with your question, and Raphael, I will end up with your questions, and then the other questions I will transfer to the next session. Because yeah, it's Friday evening. I don't want to keep you guys too long. It's becoming weekend, and I will I want to start my weekend also, of course. Looking forward to a small drink, perhaps, to maybe celebrate this live session, because it's cool that I think I had 18 to 20 people at tops, 13 likes. So I hope I helped you guys out a lot. And thank you so much. Yeah, no problem. So I will end with Gerald's question. Is it true that being in biomedical research is not a very stable job? It's true if you're a postdoc, if you're doing postdoc in academia, if you're doing biomedical research in academia, and you're doing postdoc after postdoc, and you have to reapply for funds. It's true, that's academia. When do you get job certainty? Well, if you get tenure track and become a professor, but that is so difficult nowadays. If you're a biomedical researcher in industry, that's another type of thing. If you're working for a company, you have a steady job, that's another type of biomedical researcher. Then maybe you're not as such doing... There are pharmaceutical companies that hire biomedical researchers to target the disease mechanisms, not all. Or you can be a biomedical researcher and get more into the development, the drug development type of work with your biomedical research degree in an R&D department. Either way, if you're in a research institute or a company and it's not academia focused where you don't have to apply for grants over and over again, then that's of course more stable. For creating a drug, you would need to be a biomedical engineer or a biomedical scientist. To create a drug, you could be a biotechnologist, you could be a biomedical scientist, you could perhaps maybe also a biomedical engineer in some cases, but biomedical engineers are more focused on the medical device branch of life science medical field. My good friend Mary from the BME Life, I highly welcome. If you're interested in biomedical engineering, you should check out her channel. Also a further shout out now since we're at it. So we had Vera from PhD Coffee Time, we have Mary from the BME Life, and then we have Life Lab learner Clemens from Germany. Well, not from Germany, he's from Austria, but he's studying in Germany. And then there's David Scully from Ireland. These are my friends on YouTube. I still have a lot of other people that I know on YouTube, but these are my related channels, let's say. So shout out to every one of those. And yeah, it's good to know you guys and to be within this field of giving this knowledge to guys and girls who are looking to build their future in life science and try to help them out as much as we can for different aspects, looking to get into bachelors, get into masters, get into a PhD, get into your first job, long-term prospects, research, whatever, you know what I mean. So shout out to each and every one of you. No problem, Vera. I thought you were just saying hi, but you kind of like sticked all the way around. Good to hear. So I think I wanted to finish up on Raphael's question for creating the drug. Pharmaceutical science, I forgot. So pharmaceutical science is also an option, and that is highly focused on creating a drug. But then maybe a drug in a traditional sense, being that a lot of medicinal chemistry is involved and that we call it small molecules. Biopharmaceutical companies where you have monoclonal antibodies, or you develop let's say antisense oligonucleotides that are delivered for gene knockdown or gene therapy. Those are biologicals, so that's more like biomed field or biotech field. So drug development can be different things, and again, different life science graduates can go into that. Okay. Okay, let's just finish up. Is foundation year a foundation year necessary to connect it to your biomed degree? I don't know what you mean with the foundation year. Maybe you can email me. My email is in the about section. These are very specific questions. I can learn also from these questions yourself. Thanks for answering the questions. You're highly welcome, everyone. So I still have some other questions that I will transfer to the next session. Maybe readapt the schedule a bit and go a bit further over the questions, or perhaps maybe tackle less questions and already plan ahead for future sessions live. Also, maybe if I reduce the amount of questions, then I can go deeper into the live stream session questions that you answer here as such, because yeah, it's good to see that you guys like it and that it's very interactive like this. So with that, I would like to say thanks again. I hope you had benefits from this. I've recorded now for an hour and a half. I will upload it again, and I will see you next week at probably the same time. I deleted the events already because I want to get some feedback maybe first on if this is actually a good time for you, or if other people could nonetheless be attending more at this hour, because now it's 8:30 here locally, 8:30 p.m. A levels. Yeah, that's something that's very specific for the UK system. I have no clue what A levels mean. So yeah, maybe it's best to go and find someone who's in the UK and foundation year. I will also do some research, but maybe send me an email and then I can be reminded to follow up on that. Okay, you're highly welcome, Nisha. You guys also enjoy your weekend. I will see you in the next live stream or maybe the next video. I don't know. I'm working on it nonetheless. And again, thank you for being here. Hope you had benefits from it, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, guys. I'm ending this live stream right now because I'm even more thirsty, and instead of water, I think I will grab a cold beer from the fridge to get into the weekend. Bye, everyone. See you next time. Cheers.